Do-up-a-do-up-a-do-up-a-do. Welcome, I'm Storyman Mark, and it's story time. Hello, and happy Earth Day to you. I'm so excited about today's show. Not only are we going to celebrate Earth Day, but I'm going to tell you one of my all-time favorite stories, Yogi and the Prince. And you'll learn a little bit how I use worms to create compost to put back into the earth. That's a very squirmy situation for sure. Now, let's get started. Once upon a time, a young boy and a young girl were walking along the beach. It was early in the morning, just after sunrise. As they were walking down the beach, they noticed something a little further down the beach that they were curious about. It was a little strange. It was something they'd never seen before, but as they got closer, they realized that down on the beach, stranded, were hundreds and hundreds of starfish. You see, it had been a full moon that night, and the tides had come in further than they usually do, and all of these starfish had followed the water in. But when the moon set, the water went out, trapping the starfish on the beach. Oh, they looked at each other and they went immediately into action. They didn't hesitate. They started saving starfish. The boy and girl bent down, picked one up each, and then put it in the water, and they bent down and picked another one. Well, they were saving starfish and doing a pretty good job of it, I might say. Now, a man came by from the nearby fishing village and said, "Hey, you two, what do you think you're doing?" They said, "Well, we're saving starfish. What does it look like we're doing?" "Well, why are you saving starfish, for crying out loud? They're starfish." "Do you think it matters?" "Well, yes, it matters." And the little girl picked one up and quietly put it in the water. "It matters to that one, that's for sure." Well, he watched him save a couple more starfish, and he got curious. And he himself saved one. You know, it made him feel kind of good, actually. Yes, sirree. And so he saved another one. Well, the three of them were saving starfish together. An old woman was out on her morning walk from the nearby fishing village. And sure enough, she came by and said, "Hey, what are you kids doing?" And they said, "We're saving starfish." "Well, I've never saved a starfish before. I think I'll give it a try." And so she did. She saved a starfish. And whoa! It felt so good, she saved another one. "Oh, this is really fun." "Oh my goodness." Soon, word spread to the nearby fishing village that some people were down on the beach doing something really silly, and people couldn't believe what they heard. And so in ones and twos and little groups, sometimes families together, stopped eating breakfast and came down to the beach to see what all the hullabaloo was about. And they saw people saving starfish. And you know what? They all got swept into it. They all started saving starfish. "Oh, I want to save that one. Look, no, that one's for me. I want to save that one." Oh, and before you know it, all the starfish were saved. Oh, and they were so excited. They high-fived each other, low-fived each other, and gave each other a little smack on the butt. It was wonderful. And they all had such a really, really good day. And the man says to the boy and girl, he says, "You know, thanks for that lesson. What a great way to start my day." "You're welcome," they said. And so the boy and the girl went on skipping down the beach singing, "I love the mountains, I love the rolling hills," and went about their day and had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. And that story is called Saving Starfish. Now, here are some fun facts about the Earth.
Don't pollute, give a hoot.
Welcome back. My featured story today is called The Prince and the Yogi, and it comes from India. And I might point out the picture that I have on the wall here is actually of a storyteller from India. And they have a very rich tradition of storytelling in India, and in fact, pretty much every country around the world. And you'd be surprised when you start studying storytelling, you find out that every culture has very similar stories. But this one I really like in particular because of its earth-friendly message. You see, once there was a prince, and this prince really enjoyed dressing up in all his finest clothes, riding his favorite elephant out across the land in his principality, and he would have his soldiers marching, and he would have musicians playing. Oh, and it was such a festival-like atmosphere. And his wise men would even be walking with him. Oh, and everybody was having such a good time. And the people would sometimes even throw flowers and flower petals down in front of the elephant as they were walking by. And the thing about it is that the prince always wore his most valuable possession with him every time he went out, especially on these parades through his principality. It was this jewel that had been passed down from generation to generation from his family, all the way back as far as anybody could know. And he always wore it right on his turban, and it sparkled in the sunlight, and it could blind you if it just caught it just right. So one particular summer day, and it was a hot day, he was out riding his elephant, and the band was playing, and everybody was marching, da-da, da-da, da-da. Oh, and everybody was having a great time, but it was a hot and humid day. And you know how that humidity can get to you. Well, it wasn't long before, he was perspiring a little bit. His beard was getting a little moist, and his underarms were getting a little wet, and he decided there was one place he could go where he knew he could get a cool drink of water, and that was a nearby lake. It was a deep lake, except, around the edges it wasn't so deep, so you could actually wade in it. But if you went in too far, you could disappear. So that's the lake he went to. And so he drove his elephant to that lake, and he got off his elephant. Now, of course, they had to use a ladder for him to get off. And he got off the elephant, and he walked over to the water, and he bent down to take a drink of water. But as he did, his most valuable possession fell off of his turban and kabloop, right into the water. Bah! Help, help, help! He screamed, help, help, please, help, 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 help. My most valuable possession has fallen into the water. Somebody find it for me, please, help. Well, the soldiers threw their weapons down and jumped into the water. The musicians threw their instruments down and jumped into the water. The wise men, they picked up their trousers and just kind of jumped into the water too, because they weren't going to be outdone by musicians and soldiers. They were the wise men, of course. And everybody was splashing around and looking for his most valuable possession. Now, it was about this time when a yogi walked up and asked the prince what was going on. And the prince said, "Oh, I've lost my most valuable possession. It has fallen in the pond. Do you think you can help?" "Well, I might," he said. "I have an idea. So why don't you come with me on a walk around the pond?" "A walk around the pond? What are you talking about? My jewel is in the pond." "Oh, please, do you trust me?" Well, now, even though the prince had not met this particular yogi before, he knew that yogis were supposed to be wise men. And so he said, "Well, I guess I do." "In that case," said the yogi, "Prince, please follow me around the pond." And they took a few steps on their walk around the pond, and he said, "Oh, by the way, would you have everyone get out of the pond?" But, do you trust me?" "Well, I guess so." "Then have everybody get out of the pond." And so the prince asked everybody to get out of the pond. And they were like, "Why are we getting out of the pond? The jewel's in the pond somewhere." But they went for a little walk around the pond. Now, they hadn't gone very far when the yogi said, "Prince, stop and turn your head just a little bit." And what do you feel? Oh, and there was actually a cool breeze, but you had to have your cheek just right, and you had to slow down, and it just blew across his face. And it was refreshing on such a hot day to find a refreshing breeze. Oh, it was delicious. And they walked a little further around, and, "Oh, stop," said the yogi, "and listen." And there was a bird song, and it was a sweet, sweet song. He didn't remember ever hearing that song before. Yet, he had remembered seeing that bird often. He thought, why had I never heard the song? And they walked a little further, and once again the yogi stopped and said, "Now, Prince, Bend down and smell that flower there and tell me what you smell. And so the prince bent down and, oh, it was the sweetest smell. I mean, it was sweeter than any expensive perfume you might find. Wow, he said he'd seen that flower all of his life, but had never thought to smell it. And they continued to walk around the pond, stopping and looking and listening and watching a butterfly flit about, or watching grasshoppers grass or bees fly around, listening to other bird songs, until finally they went all the way around the pond and they came back to where they stopped. And so the yogi said, now Prince, look into the water and tell me what you see. Well, the prince looked into the water, and sure enough, there sparkling up at him was his jewel. All of the muck and mud that everybody had churned up when they jumped into the water had now settled down, and there it was. Well, what are you waiting for, said the yogi. You're right. And so he bent down and he grabbed that jewel up out of the water, and he looked at it, and he looked at the pond, and he looked at it again, and the breeze came across his face. And he looked at the pond, and the scent of the flower came by. He looked at the jewel, he heard the bird, looked at the jewel, and he put the jewel in his pocket. For he had come to realize that his most valuable possession was not the jewel in his pocket. In fact, it was something that he couldn't own. It was, in fact, the world upon which he walked. And that's called the Prince and the Yogi. Now, one other thing. The prince went to thank the yogi, but the yogi was gone, moving on down the road, seeing what other kind of trouble he could get into. So next up, we have a rather squirmy situation as you learn about composting, and then stick around for the Earth Chant. So, I'm just finishing rinsing up my worm hotel. Let me show you how this works. First of all, there's the bottom part. Now, the bottom part has a little thing where you can put like a jar underneath it, and you can do that spigot thing, and then all the little worm pee and whatever is down here, the liquids they release, and create this very potent stuff to put on your plants. So you want to save it all. And then there's a platform that everything sits on. And you can see that these are just little square plastic things with holes in them. Yes, hello, I can see you there. And so we have 5 of them, right? So it's the one on the bottom. So you put the stuff that they're going to eat in this. And when it's just about done, when they're pretty much done with it, then you put more stuff in another one, and you take and you put it underneath the first one, yeah? And then you just stack them up that way. So you can see that that's it. And of course, you have to have a roof. It's pretty lightweight. It says it's recyclable plastic, but is there anything such as recyclable plastic? I don't know. Anyway, so that's what it is. So the worms have been ordered. They'll get here in a couple of days. So by the time I report next week, when next week is about Arbor Day, right? We'll be celebrating trees next week. I'll show you the worms and how I put it all together. And then later down the road, maybe I'll show you what it looks like at the end there, right? So I hope you all have a great day. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Hey, Yunga Ho Yunga, hey, young. Well, it's time now for the Earth Chant. It's a dance of celebration, a song of celebration. It's a way we can let our bare feet, if you got a place to do bare feet, embrace the earth, embrace our mother. Hello. And I'll have the words down at the bottom of the screen. so you can follow along. And I'll slow it down. It goes like this. The earth is our mother. She's taking care of us. Hey, Yunga Ho Yunga, hey, Yung, Yung. Her sacred ground we walk upon with every step we take. Hey, Yunga Ho Yunga, hey, Yung, Yung. The earth is our mother, we're taking care of her. Hey, Yunga Ho Yunga, hey, Yung, Yung. Her sacred ground we walk upon with every step we take. Hey, Yunga Ho Yunga, hey, Yung, Yung. The earth is my mother, she's taking care of me. Hey, Yunga Ho Yunga, hey, Yung, Yung. Her sacred ground I walk upon with every step I take. Hey, Yunga Ho Yunga, hey, Yung, Yung. That's kind of the song. So, I give it to you, put it out there, learn it, share it with people, and dance for Mother Earth. Hey, Yunga Ho Yunga, hey, Yung, Yung. Next week, we'll celebrate Arbor Day. So you can go practice hugging trees between now and then. Again, tying ourselves to the earth. So you have a great day. Storyman Mark, out. Hey, Yunga Ho Yunga, hey, Yung, Yung. Hey, Yunga